Hey there, Andrew here, welcoming you to another episode of Research and Reviews. In this episode, we're going to be visiting all of the Pilot and Flying J stores in the state of Washington, all while car camping in a Tesla Model Y. I've always had this fascination with the Pilot stores and the Flying J stores. They have this amazing assortment of gadgets and things that you can get for your vehicle and unique gifts, and I just like them. And so I decided that I wanted to visit all of them in the state of Washington and see what the differences were between the stores. I also had a curiosity on how my Tesla Model Y would work as a camping vehicle. And so why not combine the two, which is exactly what I did. First, we're going to talk about my experience camping in the Model Y. Over the course of 7 days, I slept in a motel twice and at a friend's house once. The rest of the time, I slept in the Tesla. To make that comfortable, I invested in a mattress that was specifically designed for the Tesla. It's a 2.5-inch memory foam, and it lays out in the back with the seats folded down and fills the area perfectly. I'm not overly tall, I'm about 5'10", but when sleeping in the center of the cargo bay area, I had plenty of room to stretch out without having to scrunch up or hit my feet against the back of the hatch. I will say that 2.5 inches of memory foam isn't quite enough to be perfectly comfortable. It was adequate for this trip. On my next trip, I'm going to invest in an extra layer of foam to put under that form-fitting mattress, and I think that's going to be perfect. All of the essentials for the trip, extra food, changes of clothes, other camping supplies were stored in the frunk and then also on the floorboard in the back seat area. The time of this trip was late September 2023. The general temperatures that I was experiencing ranged from the mid-30s at night to the mid to high 80s during the day. Post-production correction, that's mid to high 60s. Most of the time it was sunny and dry. However, there were a couple of days where there was overcast and a little bit of rain. At night, I would activate camp mode and keep my temperature at an even 68 degrees. Maintaining that temperature under the described conditions consumed about 10% of battery per night. My process for the evening was fairly straightforward. I would supercharge and then find the nearest rest stop and then just park and stay for the night. This worked very well for me, felt very safe, didn't have any issues. The trip overall was 1,614 miles. For power consumption, I'm dividing those numbers into two portions. One portion is the portion for actually traveling, the actual electricity used moving the vehicle from point A to point B. The second number I'm going to be giving you is the amount of power I used for climate control during the night. Those costs broke down to $166.51 for travel and $5.12 for climate control. As a gasoline comparison, my Toyota RAV4 would get about 35 miles to the gallon on the highway. Presuming that 35 mpg at about $4.90 a gallon, which was the average price I was seeing on the road, that would equate to about 46.1 gallons, totaling $225.89. That brings the Tesla in at 26.3% less expensive to drive than the RAV would have been. I have to admit, I was disappointed that I didn't have a wider spread between the two. I was hoping for 50% or more, but these are real live numbers, and I'm happy to take the savings that I got. Looking overall at the camping experience in the Model Y, a couple of questions. Would I do it again? Absolutely. I'm definitely planning on that. Was it enjoyable? Yes. Was it comfortable? Yes. So definitely, without question, more car camping in the Model Y is in my future. Now, moving on to the Pilot and Flying J stores. There were 10 in the entire state. I visited them all. I have my cheat sheet here, and I'm going to give you a little synopsis of each of them. Store number 1, Pilot, Tumwater, Washington. I have it listed EOEO. Now, what I mean by that is easy off, easy on for freeway access. This particular store was under renovation. The store was tiny, the parking lot was very tight. They didn't have any ready-to-eat food, but there was a McDonald's attached directly to the store. The one thing I loved about this Pilot store was it had Tesla supercharging available. Because of that, my overall rating of a 1 to 5 is 3.5. Directly across the freeway from the Pilot store is a brand new Flying J. It enjoyed EO. It was brand new and had a Taco Bell attached. It had a well-appointed store. It was very clean. It was very uncluttered. It had ready-to-eat food, but sorry, no pizza. It had showers, it had a laundry, and it had self-checkouts, something I have seen in no other Pilot or Flying J. My overall rating for that store, 4.5. Moving on to Tacoma was the Pilot Express. It enjoyed EO, and it was smaller. It was also situated in an area that was kind of, well, the best way to put it is a little trashy. The grounds themselves were clean, but the surrounding neighborhood, not so much. You also had to drive through a homeless encampment to get to the Pilot store. When I walked in the store, the first thing I was greeted by was a security officer. I also noticed that some items were locked on the shelves to prevent theft, of course. If you want to use the restrooms there, you're going to have to get a code from the clerk. The store had a spacious lot, but it just didn't give me that I'm in the best part of town vibe. My overall rating for Tacoma's Pilot Express, 2.5. Moving on, Pilot Store, Ferndale, Washington. This store enjoyed EO. It had a spacious lot. It had showers. It had a medium-sized store, fairly well appointed, and a Subway was attached. Also, there's a McDonald's across the street. Overall rating, 3. Next up, Pilot Store, Arlington. The store enjoys EO. There was hot food ready to eat, and they had some amazing pizza. Compliments of, what was it? Oh yeah, PJ Fresh. Those are amazing pizzas. If you're not in the mood for pizza, you could also have Arby's, and for dessert, Cinnabon. The store had showers and a laundry, and the overall rating, 4.5. It would have been a 5 if they had Tesla charging. Next was a bit of an oddball. It's also in Arlington and showed up on the list of Pilot/Flying J affiliates, but it was something a little different called a 1-9. It definitely was not EO. When I finally found it, it was essentially a converted mobile station with a convenience store attached and refueling pumps. There was also a drive-through coffee in the same general parking lot. Overall rating, 1.5. Next stop, Pilot Store, Ellensburg. It enjoyed EO. It had an Arby's, it had a Cinnabon, it had a nice and well-appointed store, and it had some hot, ready-to-eat food. It had a spacious lot, it had showers, it had a laundry, and I'll give it a little extra credit in that they were installing some kind of a no-name EV charging station. Overall rating, 4.75. It would have been a 5 if they would have installed Tesla supercharging. Next on the list, also in Ellensburg, Flying J. The store was older, and it was a Conoco conversion. It had a large store, and it had this combination of both typical and non-typical Pilot/Flying J items. It had a shower and laundry, and it had some hot, ready-to-eat food, including pizza. It just wasn't the really nice PJ Fresh pizza. Overall score, 3, because of the pizza. Next was Flying J in Pasco, and this was by far the most interesting of my stops. First, this was not EO. Second, there was no store. There were also no restrooms. There was no laundry. There were no showers. This was a refueling station only. Overall rating, 1. And I was being kind with that. Next stop, Flying J, Spokane, Washington. This is one of 2 Flying J's in Spokane. This one was definitely not EO. I had to navigate at least 4 traffic circles just to get to the store. It was older. It was a 76 conversion. The store was small. It was cluttered. Showers were posted out of order until February of next year. I didn't feel it was overly clean, but there was a Subway attached. Overall score, 2.5. My final stop was the Flying J, Spokane, Washington on Broadway. This one did have EO. It was a Conoco conversion, and it was connected to the Broadway Diner. Some items were locked on shelf as a theft deterrent. Restrooms required a code for entry. And the store seemed to be kind of sparsely stocked with the typical items you would expect at a Flying J. One thing I did love about the store, though, was that the staff was remarkably friendly. Overall score, 3, mostly because of the staff. So there you have it, all 10 Pilot/Flying J locations in the state of Washington and how they rated. After that last stop in Spokane, I had a few more days left of my vacation time, and so I decided to zip over to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, stayed there a couple of nights in a motel. Then my next stop was over to Leavenworth, Washington, visited there for the day, stayed the night at the rest stop just outside of town, and then I moved on to Lalip, where I stayed with friends there, and from there, it was back home. So there you have it, a survey of all of Washington State's Pilot and Flying J stores, all while car camping in a Tesla Model Y. That's all for now. I'll see you next time.